Hey, good evening. Welcome to Foreigner in the Philippines. Some time ago, a subscriber wrote to me and asked me if I could give him any tips on narration. I have I have 3 books that I've narrated of my own collections of short stories. So I guess he must have heard one of those and considered that I might be able to help. So here I am. I thought I would do some kind of tutorial advice on how you can narrate your own stories. Now, you're probably looking at this and saying, this is not of any interest to me because I don't have any stories. Well, everybody has stories, and if you have children, you must be in that situation where you are probably a boring old fart because you're not putting much into making your stories interesting. Now, when you read to a kid, they really want to hear some kind of characterization. That's how Walt Disney, or as my wife would say, Wally Disney, achieved such great success, was that he appealed to children in a way that children actually enjoyed being appealed to. So let's take you a bum's rush through what the voice entails and why and how you should use it and where the sounds come from. Well, the first thing to do is to realize that you resonate, and you resonate in 2 different places. You resonate in the mouth area, which is that cavity which is the mouth. You resonate there, and you also resonate in the nose cavities, which all come here, and they all connect. That's why doctors are ear, nose and throat doctors, because there are cavities here which are huge compared to the mouth. Now, here's an interesting thing. You can resonate from the mouth only, and you get a fairly empty sound. Most people just resonate from the mouth only. But then, if you learn to resonate in the nasal cavities, then you can't resonate in the nasal cavities without also using the mouth, so you get a very full sound. Why do you need a full sound? If you're going to narrate stories, even for children, and let's put children as being the highest thing that you could possibly do when you narrate a story. So I got to tell you that when I was a single parent, bringing up my child that I came to America with when he was 6 years old. And until he was about 13, every night I narrated stories to him. Most of the time, amazingly, I narrated Winnie the Pooh. And it became very clear very quickly that it wasn't enough to say, and then Winnie the Pooh said so-and-so, so-and-so, and then I said, that wasn't enough. You had to have characterization. You had to do something which would appeal. So that involved, because you're there and you're in front of the person that you are narrating to, you would have facial expressions. And you have many more facial expressions than you've ever thought. And they are quite important to getting the right sound. Now, a case in point would be if you look at any of the characterizations which have been made by Disney and other, I don't know, Toy Story, and the people that were behind the voices of all of those characters, and they made the character look a little bit like the actor who did the voice. Now that should be interesting to you. Now, I used to go along in the car here with Batchoy, and Batchoy loved to hear the voices. And the first one that he liked, that he really enjoyed, because it had a miserable, creepy face, was, "My word, you do look queer. My word, you do look queer." Now you notice that I don't say, my word, you do look queer. I say, "My word, you do look queer." No, you get that look on your face like this when you say, "My word, you do look queer." What would the kind of person that would say such a thing look like? Well, my word, you do look queer. So you get the mouth going like this, "My word, you do look queer." and the eyebrows and everything. I used to play a game even with very young Talik and Bibi when we first came out here, and they would be the vampires and I would be the zombie, and I only had to put on the eye like this and get the mouth going, and then I would walk like that, and they would go off in screams of hypocritical joy. It was important to have a facial expression, and it was important in order to be able to produce that sound. So I made a couple of notes. So why should you learn to narrate? If you've got kids, it's a must, because they're going to want you to read to them. Now, my feeling was this. I was a single parent, and I wanted that bonding time with my son, and I made sure that I was the last voice that he heard when he went to sleep, and I was the first voice and the first face that he saw and voice that he heard when he woke in the morning. I was always there for him. That was important, and I still feel that that's important. This is your chance, if you narrate well, if you tell a story well, this is your chance to be in that moment in your child's life which will have a huge impact on him. And this, I feel, has happened with the children that I was able to... I got divorced and separated from two of my children when I left Luke's mother. Luke was the boy that I brought out to America when we had a separation. So, but the other two I also read to, and I also read, and they would have had me repeat the Ghostbusters story every night for the rest of their lives, the Ghostbusters. And I made a deal with them. I say, listen, I'll read you stories, but if you think I'm going to wade through the Ghostbusters, you're wrong, because I'd be saying the Ghostbusters and I'd think, oh God, I gotta get them to sleep, and I'd skip a page and I'd say, no Dad, you've missed a bit out. So I made sure that I read quality books to them, and Winnie the Pooh is by A.A. Milne, and the writing is beautiful. And if you can learn to do some of the voices required, then that will be a very special moment for you before they go to bed, and then when they wake up in the morning they hear your voice again. So you can earn a living like this. You can earn a living by narrating. So the lesson that you must learn first and foremost is you must learn to be able to resonate. You must learn that there is a hard age and a soft age, because if you're going to narrate and it's the part of a woman, you're not going to use a hard age. Because traditionally the woman would speak with a breathy voice like this, and a man would speak with a harder voice like this, wouldn't he? Yes, Miss Jones. You understand? So find out where your special voices are going to come from. And my own particular way of doing it was that when I first started, one of the things that I realized was that confidence was a big part of this. And confidence is about knowing that you have something to say and can say it. Now I came up in a family that had little time for children. My sister was 7 years older than I was, and my younger brother was the baby of the family. So obviously he was coddled, and so that made me the middle child, and I got blamed for everything. Now I was born at the start of the Second World War. Now I was a middle child that got blamed for everything, but the Second World War was not my fault, okay? Now, where do you look for your own unique voices? Let's take some of the most famous people in the world. Look at the Beatles. Now, the Beatles, they found their voice, but not nearly as deep as they later showed. Remember their first, wasn't one of their first hits was "She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. She loves you, yeah, 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 yeah." Very profound, wasn't it? How did they get from there to Eleanor Rigby? Eleanor Rigby picks up the rice in the church where the wedding has been, lives in a dream. How did they get that? Father Mackenzie writing the words of a sermon that no one will hear. No one came near. All the lonely people, where do they all belong? All the lonely people, where do they all come from? They reached that level of profound insight when they realized that people were really listening. After that, they could do anything they wanted. Penny Lane is in my ears and in my eyes. Penny Lane was stories about a barber who took photographs of every head he'd ever known. The most unusual thing, and up to then, songs were not about this kind of thing. They were not about all of the different subjects. What about She's Leaving Home? I don't want this to be a talk about the Beatles and how they found themselves, but it is a lesson in realizing that at some point you're going to make a breakthrough when you learn to find your own voices. Think about David Bowie. David Bowie was one who was a self-proclaimed chameleon. He said he picked up voices and sounds from everywhere that he went. And you think about it. Ground control to Major Tom. Ground control to Major Tom. Take your protein pills and put your trousers on. I'm extemporizing with the words. This is ground control to Major Tom. I'm walking out in space, and I'm floating in the most peculiar way. And here am I floating in a tin can, far from the moon. And the earth is very blue, and there's nothing I can do. Major Tom to ground control. Major Tom to ground control. Major Tom. So if you're going to narrate, the voices that you do are reflected in the expressions that you have on your face. When people are trained to do that service where it's customer service and they're answering, people who have problems with their cell phones and they call and they get customer service and they got somebody who will answer the phone. They trained these people always answer the phone smiling. Hello, hello, this is your regular Acme voice answering service, because it reflects in the way that you actually speak. So I use songs as ways of having text that you can practice. That's the object of you don't have to be a singer, and you're not trying to be a mimic. You're not trying to impersonate people, but there were voices all over your life. There have been voices, zippity-doo-dah, zippity-ay, my, what a wonderful day, send plenty of sunshine heading my way, zippity-doo-dah, zippity-ay. The voice and the face have to go together. What about all of the Hollywood movies? The Hollywood movies, I remember something like a Yankee in Connecticut court. My friend and I, who was my roommate in Fort Myers, we used to know someone who was the happiest person. He had inherited a property which he had turned into his own little paradise. It had a yard where he planted, he had all kinds of plants that were donated to him, and he cared for them. And he went in every day. He didn't have to work. He had a little money, and he was able to have a most, I realized later, we used to actually think of him as being quite funny, but I realized he was the happiest man. Well, we used to think about the Yankee and Connecticut court, and there was a group of actors in there who couldn't sing, but then that never stopped Hollywood actors anyway. So they used to say, "We're busy doing nothing, working the whole day through, trying to find lots of things not to do. We're busy going nowhere, having a gay old time. We like to be unhappy, but we never feel so inclined." And you can see that the way that you sing it, the way that you say it, is important. Now, you can do that over and over and over again until you finally start to loosen up. Now, this brings you into another aspect of doing anything. When you do anything that you want to increase your skill at, there is a warm-up time. When an athlete takes the field, he doesn't go strip his tracksuit off, get down in the crouching thing, and the gong goes off. No, he doesn't do that. He warms up. And the reason that he warms up is to get him into that point where he will be able to do his best. And that means getting into the moment. If you're a trumpet player, a trombone player, a violin player, if you're any one of these things that requires a great skill, you're going to spend time warming up. And that warming up period is vital, because it's even more vital if you're a beginner. As a beginner, you will be facing seemingly insurmountable obstacles to doing it, because that little voice that we all have inside us will be saying, "Are you kidding me? Are you wasting your time doing all of this BS? You'll never be able to do this." Most people have a little voice that at some point or other has told them this. So you've got to get over that. And the only way that you can get over that is to stop thinking and talk, as we're talking about narrating. So what else you could have? Let me see. Zippity. Did I do zippity? Zippity-doo-dah. Yes, I did. What's the other one? My word, you do look queer. You can do all of these voices over and over again. Now, in all of your life, you have had to speak in the words of a different age. Now, when I was a kid, as I said, I was born at the start of the Second World War, 1939. So the first 5 years, there was a war going on outside our door. And my mother and father had anything but a peaceful time together, so there was actually a war zone inside where I lived. And I used to talk to my dad, and he was always very strange, you know. I never really understood my dad. I never used to say my, I always used to say me, because I came from Manchester. I used to go to a little school called St Wilfrid's Secondary Modern, and the teachers there all spoke with a very, very posh accent. Mr Cunningham was he was the headmaster. We didn't call him the principal in those days. We called him the headmaster. And Mr Cunningham said awfully well. "Of course, I'm trying to teach you the point about not swearing. And when we talk about a man who says, 'I was as white as a bloody sheet,' look how ridiculous that is." That's so ridiculous. How can you be as white as a bloody sheet? He thought it was very funny, but I thought it was just stupid. But all the rest of the kids all that. they're all kissing his ass. I thought, sorry. So, what we're looking at is finding your own unique voices. In the home that I lived in, my mother would speak with a mouth like a chainsaw, and during those times when I was caught in between, there was lots of noise. Things of plates and teapots and cups and saucers and knives and forks being slammed down on the table. My father would be at the fireplace warming himself after work, and my mother would say, "Tell your father his tea's ready," and bang would go the plate down. I would go over in my naivety and I would say to my dad, "Dad, Mum says your tea's ready." And my father, with an air of resignation that I remember to this day, would cover his face like this and say, "If ever a man suffered." You have all of these voices and you can draw on them, and you can make stories live. And you can do it by drawing on those voices which are uniquely yours. So, find, as a suggestion, find songs which you can live. Find stories which you can narrate. One of the stories that I wrote, that I have narrated and encourage you to listen to, was Hands Off Our Mavis. Now, when you're in the north of England, you don't refer to your sister as Mavis. You call her our Mavis. And if it's your brother, you say our Neville, or our Patty. My sister was named Patty, and I never called her Patty. I said our Patty. See, so you have lots to draw on, and when you narrate a story, you have to be in the story as if it's your story, because at that moment in time it is your story. And if you're doing this for a living, then that's what they will require. Now, in my story, A Hands Off Our Mavis, for as much as I can remember of it, having written a story is not the same as memorising it, but things were going just great till Pretty Boy Eddie waltzed in the door of the Pig and Whistle, and did no, with that fancy piece of his, and did no more than make straight for our Mavis for a cheap grope. Now, I know that our Mavis is no great beauty. Okay, so she's not even attractive. Fine, so she struggles to be plain. Does that give Pretty Boy Eddie the right to go over and have a cheap grope as if I'm not even in the same room? I don't think so. And come to think of it, how does Pretty Boy Eddie ever get a name like that, when you consider that he's not any prettier than you and me? So what if he's seen High Noon 47 times? I've seen Dirty Harry 37 times. Do I go round saying, "Make my day, punk"? So the man who's narrating this story is angry about everything, and that's why he spits the words out. So everything was going great till Pretty Boy Eddie waltzed in the door of the Pig and Whistle with that fancy piece of his, and did no more than head straight for my sister, our Mavis, for a cheap grope. So you can see that he articulates everything hard, and it's all done hard. So that story is about a barroom brawl, and it's being told by someone who is actually quite articulate, but in a folky kind of way, shall we say. So when you choose a story, choose it and live it. And that will be the start of your journey as a narrator. And it doesn't matter whether it's by A.A. Milne or by Dostoevsky. That doesn't matter. You are there to bring that story to life, and you will only bring it to life when you live it. So things were going just great till Pretty Boy Eddie waltzed in the door of the Pig and Whistle. Pretty Boy Eddie is not going to walk in the door of the Pig and Whistle. He's going to walk in the door. He's going to waltz in the door of the Pig and Whistle. So, you need to express the emotion that's being expressed in the story. So find some stories that you enjoy and narrate them to the mirror over and over. Now here's an important thing, I believe. Don't record it at first. Don't do that. One of the temptations is to go in, even before you have warmed up, and record it. And then when you look at it, you'll get a huge loss. Don't do it. Don't do that to yourself. Wait until you are actually warmed up. Wait until you are furious about Pretty Boy Eddie waltzing in the door of the Pig and Whistle. Wait until then, before you start to record it, because I'm sure that you have a phone that you can record yourself on and then watch it. But here's another lesson that I learned as a musician. My professor of trombone would tell me, you must do what you are the exercise that you are practicing, you must play it perfectly 6 times. 6 times. I've given this example before about how to get good at something. If you play something, if you say something, if you do something 6 times faultlessly, you will be able to do it well, no matter who is watching you. So, how would that go? You would do it once, perfectly. Then you would do it twice. Maybe not quite so perfectly. Then you go back to 1. You go 1, 2, 3, mistake. Go back to 1, 2, 3, mistake. Go back to 1, 2, 3, mistake. Go back to 1, 2, mistake. Go back to 1, 2, 3, 4, mistake. Go back to 1, 2. You have to be relentless on yourself. You have to force that you're not going to think about whether something is good or bad or right or going on. You're going to do it faultlessly. And you're going to do it faultlessly 6 times. And if on the 6th time, in the last word, you fluff it or make a mistake or play it wrong or whatever, you go back to 1, 2, 3, and you do 6 again. And you may end up doing hundreds. But what you realize after a while is that you're going to do it as many times as you need. And after a while, you will actually get into it. Then you know that you have passed the warm-up stage. And that's the most important thing. You pass the warm-up stage, and then the work begins. 1, 2, 3, mistake. 1, 2, 3, 4, mistake. Good luck. I hope that you enjoy your narrating. I know that all you have to do is sit down in front of your own batchoy and say, my word, you do look queer. My word, you do look queer. This is a foreigner in the Philippines. Happy narrating. Bye for now. you can always message me and tell me how you're getting on with this. I'd be very interested to know. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Good night for now.